So how y'all doing this evening? Good. All right. So tonight's going to be a little bit different, a lot different, obviously. I'm not preaching to you, and you said amen, right? No. So I'm just going to share with you my trip to the Holy Land, to Israel, and we're going to hope and pray that all of the equipment works the way it's supposed to. Bear with me. For you, is the live stream working, guys? Okay, well, if it's working for y'all somewhat, I just realized before service that you wouldn't be able to see the pictures the way I'm doing it, so we rigged it and tried to zoom the camera in on the TV. If it works, it works. If not, come see me after, later at church, and I'll show you pictures. But for y'all that are here, man, Pastor Tim, I only had about 5 minutes worth of stuff, and you gave me 40, so hope you all have a lot of questions afterwards. So seriously, afterwards, if we have time, I'll take some questions and anything. I mean, you can ask me anything, and I probably won't know it, but you can ask it. So jot it down in your memory or on a piece of paper, and talk to me later. We'll have a little round table, I guess, and see what I can answer for you if you're curious. So my trip to Israel, and I got to go with my dad. This was such a blessing. We planned this trip. Oh my. Been like 2 years ago, and then COVID hit, and then more COVID hit, and here we are in year 3, finally getting to go. And thank you, may I say off the bat, thank you for those of you who prayed for me. Obviously, I was a little nervous, first time overseas, and some of you said you prayed for me every day, and I felt it, and I appreciate it. So I'm going to take you step by step, each place that we went. In order through the days. And so the first place we went is Joppa. Actually, you know what? We need to have a word of prayer, because I may not be preaching, but I still want God to bless this. And I want this to, I don't want this just to be like, well, that was boring. You went through 100 pictures and I don't know what happened. Okay. I want the Bible, as much as can possible in pictures, come alive to you as you're reading, and you can say, oh, man, I remember that picture that Marcus showed me. So let's have a word of prayer and ask God to do that in our hearts. So, Lord, thank you for this time. And, Lord, I thank you for this trip that you allowed me to go on. I pray that it would be a blessing to not just me, but to those that are here tonight. And, Lord, I do pray that you would, Lord, give me the words to say. And, Lord, ingrain some of these things into our hearts and our minds, that as we go back to the Scriptures, we can picture these things and see your word differently. Lord, may it even increase our faith. And Lord, we'll praise you and thank you for all of it. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. First place we went was Joppa. So this was really cool. We flew in early. We went with a group of about 75 pastors and their wives. And it was me and my dad, there were some single guys there too. But we flew in early. And so we got a little bonus stop. We got to go out with just a few pastors that kind of knew the area, and we got to go to Joppa. Now, what happened in Joppa? What's the main thing? Oh, there's a few things. What the main thing? Jonah, okay? So Jonah sails out of Joppa, right? And this is where he flees from the Lord. And so this is really close to Tel Aviv. You fly into Tel Aviv, you hop over to Joppa, and man, a really neat city. Old, almost like picturesque, like you just see it in a movie, like my wife would probably want to just go stay there a few days, and really neat. So you're going to see a lot of pictures of me and my dad. Sorry, guys. But this is on top of the what they call the tell. Now, it's going to be pictures informative as well. So does anybody know what a tell is? No. Okay. So like Tel Dan, Tel Megiddo, Tel, and as you're driving throughout Israel, you see tells everywhere. And all it is a big mound of dirt. It would just look like a big mound of dirt, like with grass. And what that tell is, that is where an ancient city is that has not been excavated. And so it's just been covered over just by years and, centuries of dirt. And so you'll be driving down and be like, hey, there's tell whatever. And I'm like, what in the world? Just looks like a mound of dirt. But if they would excavate it, they would find. So this, though Joppa has grown up around it, we are standing on top of the ancient city that they've really never excavated, okay? So really cool. So Tel Joppa. This is, you can see in the back here, and this is cool. You see my little highlighter? Yeah. So back there, that is the actual port that that Jonah would have sailed out of. Now, it might have looked a little different than that, but that is the port that he would have sailed out of. And then it's just a really neat city. Now, this is another thing that happened in Joppa. Anybody else know another big thing that happened in Joppa? It's a vision. Who had the vision? Peter had a vision. So Peter had a vision, and you should be really thankful for this vision, because this is the vision where Peter, that God gave Peter about the clean meat and the unclean meat, and he's drawn to go to see this guy named Cornelius in Caesarea. And so he goes to Cornelius, which is a Gentile, and he's saved. His family is saved. And you remember God says, hey, what I've made clean, don't say is unclean. I've made this clean. And so this is where they believe this. They believe this is it Simon the tanner's house? And this is where they believe Peter had that vision. They're not sure. It's tradition. But they believe that that's where that happened. And you can see just how beautiful it is. I mean, it's just, the Mediterranean is just crystal clear. That's Tel Aviv off in the distance, okay? And so as Peter would have had that vision in that house, he would have walked along that coastline and through it wouldn't have been Tel Aviv, but he would have walked down that coastline to Caesarea, and that's where he would have met Cornelius. So, we always picture, like, they're just always in, like, the desert or something, no. I mean, Peter's staying in a beautiful place. I mean, that's beautiful, okay? But that is Joppa. This was really neat. So this is Kerry Schmidt. He was one of the pastor leaders that was, I follow his podcast and stuff. And these Israeli high schoolers stopped him as we're just, like, wandering around Joppa. And they say, we want to know, I don't think they talk like that, but I have to give them some accent. We want to know, what do you as American... Is that like, I don't, anyway. What do you as American think of us Israelis? Like, what is an Israeli? Like, good, bad, ugly, whatever. What is an Israeli? And this was really cool because he had an opportunity to witness to them. And so they're recording him. I mean, they're all in his face. And he says, you are a people chosen by God to reveal God to the rest of the world. Short, sweet, to the point. You are a people chosen by God to reveal God to the rest of the world. And that's what they are. That's what the Jews are. And one of the guys that spoke English was like, that was a deep one. Like, they weren't expecting that. And that was just awesome. They just got to put a little seed into their heart and their minds. So that was Joppa. There was more there, but I can't show you everything. So the first place we stayed, this was really cool. We actually stayed on the Sea of Galilee. So that was really neat. Had a couple little beaches on the Sea of Galilee. And that is the Sea of Galilee at nighttime. A little fuzzy, but if you see, I'll circle it for you. That is Tiberias, and it's just Tiberias. Capernaum would have been right around in here somewhere across the other side. So when you see those lights I circled, that is on the complete other side of the Sea of Galilee. I'm on the complete southern tip of the Sea of Galilee, and you're looking at the northern tip of the Sea of Galilee. So you think the Sea of Galilee is huge, right? Let us go to the other side, as Jesus would say all the time. And they'd have been like, oh, right there? Like, that just, when you go, it baffles your mind. Now, they ain't got powerboats, right? They ain't just like, woo. I mean, they're rowing. But literally, when Jesus said, let us go to the other side, even on a foggy day, I could see to the other side. Okay? I mean, I couldn't see people waving at me maybe, but it's only like, I think it's 11 miles long and 8 miles wide at the widest part. And so it's just a big lake. Maybe a small lake. We think of the sea, right? There's nothing sea about it. It's very small. So that's just really interesting. Something that really grabs your attention. And there it is in the daytime. It's beautiful. And we woke up every morning, which is like this picturesque, just like, I'm on the Sea of Galilee. This is cool. Okay. Now, important stuff. Rocks. And this really was important to me because besides the Sea of Galilee, this is probably the second thing that completely stood out in my mind, just constantly. You're driving around, and it amazes you how many different climates are in one little area. It's just amazing. I mean, you're in like complete desert, cliffs, and then you're in luscious green, then you're on the Mediterranean, and then you have this, and it's just rocks, and it's everywhere. Okay? And you're like, why is that such a big deal? Well, the thing that immediately came to my mind is, if I don't praise the Lord, who's going to praise him? The rocks. The rocks are going to cry out, right? We know that passage. The rocks will cry out. And when you go through Israel, you're like, that'd be a lot of praise. It's just littered. I mean, you just like look at a hillside, and it'll just be like, just rocks laying everywhere. I'm like, what? It's just crazy. This is really cool. I mean, I'm showing you rocks, but that's the Sea of Galilee in the background. Just a beautiful, beautiful view, and more rocks. It's just the landscape's just littered with them. So anyway, it just kind of stood out to my mind. I want to show you. So there's rocks, and then the most important thing, and some of you I'll lose you after this because you'll be so excited. Ice cream. So literally, and some of the pastors told us before we went, like, they love ice cream. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But they really do. I mean, and not just like good ice cream. They have good ice cream, but like, you know, when you go to the gas station and they got like the cooler that you open and like you pick up a frozen whatever, like a drumstick, that's everywhere. Like, they just love that stuff. So, I had to try that one. And then this was gelato on the Mediterranean, and that best ice cream I've ever eaten right there. Okay, I'm just telling you. Anyway, and then this was in the Old Jerusalem, and then and this next picture. This is the important stuff, guys. So make sure you take notes. This is how they do their ice cream. They just pile it, and it's so smooth and creamy. And I'm not saying it's all like that, but there's a lot of places it just looks like that, and it's so good. Okay, but anyway, so it truly is a land flowing with milk and honey. It really is. Okay. I had to show you that just so you could think of the milk and honey. Now let's get to the important stuff. So Valley of Megiddo and Nazareth. This is our first place after Joppa, I guess we went. And so behind me there is Nazareth. Nazareth, I will say, was it's almost disappointing at first, because you go and it's like, this is where Jesus lived. No, it's just a bustling city, okay? It's just what it is. It's dirty. It's, whatever. But that's Nazareth behind me. Now, this is what's really cool. I'll come back to Nazareth. If you would just swing, well, for you, swing to your left, you'll see the next picture. Like, I'm standing looking at Nazareth. If I turn my back, this is what I see. And that's the Valley of Megiddo. Does anybody know what scholars believe is going to happen at the Valley of Megiddo? At the Battle of Megiddo. I just gave it away. Man. The Valley of Megiddo, Armageddon. And so this is where most believe that Armageddon is going to take place, in this valley. And you can see why. It's like the prime battle location. I mean, it's just like, it's massive. And it's had so many different battles and wars that's happened there throughout history. But beautiful. And you can see about 13 locations from this site. And that's Kurt Skelly talking to us there. But here was my thought. So here's this picture. Nazareth is just to my right. And then you have Valley of Megiddo. And it's like Jesus started it here, and he's going to end it literally right here. Yeah, he has the high ground, right? Yeah. But it's just you had to use the Star Wars analogy, didn't you? But anyway, so that was really cool. And then we go into Nazareth, and this was really neat. This is where Jesus worked out at the Nazareth YMCA. So I had, they found some ancient dumbbell rocks, and it's just some stuff. No, I was kidding. But I had to get a picture. I thought that was funny. But when we went to Nazareth, it really is kind of a letdown. When my dad went the first time, like 23 or 4 or 5 years ago, he was like, Nazareth is just kind of a letdown. But since then, they have excavated. This doctor found a little parcel of land right in the smack dab middle of Nazareth. And they decided, you know what, let's give something for tourists to feel what first century life would have been like. And so they bought this parcel of land. They started to build buildings like first century style, and they were going to employ people to dress up and, actually like literally farm the land and have donkeys and all this stuff. Well, as they start doing that, they run into something, and they end up finding a full first century farm, which would have been a 5 to 10 minute walk from where the original Nazareth was. And so no doubt Jesus would have been on this farm. I mean, no doubt. I mean, 5 minute walk in a tiny, they actually estimate that Nazareth was only like a dozen families, maybe 24 families. So everybody knew everybody, okay? And Jesus would have known this farm more than likely. And so they find And they actually still, they worked this farm. They excavated the whole thing and found terraces for olive trees. They found an olive, or a grape, or a wine press. There we go. They found a watchtower, which is just so cool. And so as they find all of these things, it automatically drew their mind to Matthew 21:33 when Jesus is giving this parable. And Jesus said, "Hear another parable. There was a certain householder which planted a vineyard and hedged it round about and digged a wine press in it and built a tower and let it out to husbandmen and went into a far country." And it's hard to not think that Jesus may have not been picturing, like I'm standing here and I'm like, Jesus might have been picturing this as he's telling this parable. They found a watchtower. They found a wine press. They find, like, how cool is that? Okay, how cool is that? So, and then I just want to give you a little bit of sorry, y'all. I know I'm running like hotcakes, but I want you to get all this, and there's a lot. So, so this is a threshing floor, and they've actually rebuilt a threshing floor, and that's where they would thresh the wheat, right? And they would throw up, and what would fly away from the wheat? The chaff, okay? And I never really pictured how this worked. And they would, in this big circle, they would lay all these boards out, and whatever would walk around and grind it, and the wheat, the seed would fall into these little holes, and they would pick it up, and they would throw, and the chaff would fly in the air, and the seed would stay in the holes. And I just thought that was really cool, and I never really pictured it. So that's the wheat in the chaff. This is the actual wine press that they found. And yes, they would press it with their feet, not for the extra added taste. Okay, that's what they told us. But they would actually press it with their feet, because if they would use stones, it would crush the seeds and make their wine bitter. And so they would actually step it with their feet because it wouldn't crush the seeds. But you can actually see, and they know this is hand carved. This is all hewn out right here. And I don't know if you can see right here right there. Can you see that little crack? When you're there, you can see it's a legit, I mean, you can tell they like completely hewed that out so that the wine or the grape juice would run down into this big pit. And so it's obviously a wine press. Really, really neat. And, and they're trying to give you imagination, but you're really thinking, like, as a boy, was Jesus up here, like, working on this farm, like, crushing grapes right here? So I'm up there just, like, crushing grapes. Like, yeah, I remember where Jesus was crushing grapes. I don't know. But just a cool thought. This is a a synagogue that they built. When you're in Israel, you see ruins of many synagogues, but you never see one put together. So this was really cool to see what it looked like. And here's the cool thing about the synagogue. It's church. Like, our church is modeled after the synagogue, truly. There's just seats all the way around it. And there's a podium in the middle, and they just preach. All right? And that's what a synagogue would look like. And I'll get a little more to that when we get to another place. But City Megiddo. So this is the Valley Megiddo. Well, the valley's named after the city. Megiddo was really interesting to me because Megiddo has been the site of, I want to think it was like over 38 battles. It's very strategically placed. And that's why there's one reason why many believe that Armageddon will happen here, because it's just it's been a hot spot. Not anymore. It's just ruins. But there are actually, as they dug Tel Megiddo, the big mound, as they've dug through it, they have found 20 layers. So 20 different cities built on top of each other because it has been destroyed so many times. So you see that guy standing? You see that guy standing down there? Right here? So he's standing 1,000 years lower than I'm standing. So as they excavate, he's standing in a gate. That's what the inside of like the outer gate would look like. And then I'm standing up on top of another gate 1,000 years later. So pretty cool. But it's just interesting knowing how much has happened. And I'll just run through this real quick. This was a water system, and kind of baffle your mind. It kind of shows you we're not as smart as we think we are, and they knew way more than we thought they did. But they would find, let's say their city is besieged, and they can't get out. They don't have any more water supply. They have to figure out how to have water. if they can't get out of their city. And so they would find springs outside of the city walls, and then they would tunnel underground to that spring, cover up the spring so no, they couldn't find it outside the city, and then run that water through. Just crazy. So you walk down all these steps and down, and then you get to this tunnel that they've hewn out of rock. Like, how? And they hew it all the way down to this underwater spring, and then that water flows into the city. Really, really cool stuff. So I just wanted to show you that. Caesarea. Now, who did I say earlier lived in Caesarea? Oh, see if you're listening. I've said a lot. Who did Peter go see? Cornelius. So Cornelius lived in Caesarea. Caesarea was a Roman city built by Herod the Great. Now, Herod the Great was the one that wanted to kill baby Jesus, when he was a baby, and he slaughtered, the babies in Bethlehem, and that's Herod the Great, okay? And so Herod the Great built Caesarea right on the sea. He actually, well, I don't give you a ton of backstory, but he built it really for his Roman soldiers and kind of a place of play and leisure, and so this is a big theater behind me. What's cool about this theater is they renovated the seats a little bit. And so as they did, they turned over one of the stones that had been taken from somewhere else in the countryside, and they found this stone. That's one of our guides. His name was Amr. I'll tell you a little bit about him if I have time. But they found this stone, and on the back of the stone mentioned the name Pontius Pilate of Jerusalem. Now that's significant, and that doesn't sound significant to us. But people that were scoffing at Christianity would use Pontius Pilate, because Pontius Pilate is nowhere in historical documents. You can't find anything that shows that Pontius Pilate existed besides the Word of God. And so when they found this stone, it was another one of those, the rocks will cry out. Pontius Pilate of Jerusalem. Oh, well, okay. There's an ancient document, also known as a rock. But this stone had been used somewhere, and it just got demolished and used as a seat in this theater, and they found it. So I thought that was really, really neat. This is kind of grotesque, but I'm sorry. This is Roman bathrooms. Okay. So our tour guide, our guide actually he was persistent that people were going to sit down here, and we didn't know why. And then we found out why. So anyway, they would just, no stalls or anything. It's just, there you go. And then this is Herod the Great's Roman aqueducts. Have you ever heard of the aqueducts and you're a history buff? This was them. Okay, really cool. 13 miles long. They built these aqueducts to carry water from 13 miles away so that Herod the Great could fill his bathtub on the Mediterranean Sea, basically. All right. Magdala. Magdala was really cool. Who's from Magdala? Anybody know? What? Someone say it. Mary Magdalene. All right. Mary Magdalene is from Magdala. They just recently found Magdala. I mean, it's probably within the last 10 years. They were building a hotel in Tiberias, right on the Sea of Galilee, and they ran into something, and they had to stop building the hotel because they ran into something. And they excavated all of Magdala, well, most of Magdala. A rich city. We know that Mary Magdalene was wealthy. A lot of wealthy women in this place, and they help take care of Jesus, and you can tell when you're there. It's amazing the stuff they point out, and they're like, you can tell it's wealthy. It really just brings the Bible to life and shows you, like, hey, this is real. This is truth. This was actually they found this in the synagogue, and they may want to guess what that is. A what? An altar. Well, not really an altar. It's a pulpit. It's the top of a pulpit. Now, it would have had wooden legs, but they actually found it in the spot where the podium would have been, and it would have had wooden legs under it that rotted away, obviously. But they found that, and very ornate, very engraved. There I'm standing in front of the synagogue, which, here's what's cool. We know that Jesus preached in like every synagogue in the Galilee area, so no doubt Jesus was preaching right there in that synagogue. And this just shows you how wealthy this city was. I mean, look, you can, the little stones are still in place. I mean, just see the ornate of the floor. I mean, our carpet don't look that good. I mean, our carpet looks good, but I mean, just look at the detail of that. And then this was really, really cool. Anybody heard of Josephus? Josephus? I can't even say the name. Josephus. There's no H in there. Yeah, Josephus. He was a Jewish historian that wrote a lot of things, and a lot of people scoffed at him because they couldn't prove many things because it was so long ago. And he wrote that when the Jews tried to uprise against the Romans in like 60 or 61 or something AD, and the Romans came in, and he said that in Magdala they actually tried to block the road. They tore down pillars from their synagogue and tried to block their roads to stop the Roman army. And when they excavated, guess what they found? A wall built out of not just random stones, but pillar stones, blocking this road. Really, I just thought that was really cool. And then this also showed their wealth. They had mikvahs. That's what they call these. These are like personal ritual baths. You walk down. It has to be filled with flowing, living, running water. They wouldn't just go down to the Sea of Galilee because they had enough money to build their own little bath in their house. And these were all over the place. And then this is interesting. If I can get it to go there. A cat and a Tesla. So I was really surprised to see Teslas in Israel, but it is a first world country and they do have money. So, and there were stray cats everywhere. Now, not like a ton of them, but everywhere you went, there was at least a stray cat or two. So no dogs, just cats. So anyway, the Jesus boat, I'll run through this. We got to get rolling, but they found this boat, and it's a first century boat. On the Sea of Galilee, and they actually pulled it up. You've maybe heard about it before. But what was really cool is we went out to eat later that day and met a dude, or a guy, that actually took the dimensions of this boat and built 3 of them from the exact dimensions of what they call the Jesus boat. And that's what it looked like. He actually sailed by we ate on the seashore that day, and he rode by us. And that's what a boat would have looked like in Jesus' time. So at least a little fishing boat without obviously the motor and the nice canopy and stuff. But and then we went to Capernaum. So obviously Capernaum should be a highlight, right? There wasn't a whole lot there. But why is Capernaum so important? Someone give it to me. What? Yeah, so this was like the spot that Jesus planted himself during his ministry time. Okay, Nazareth rejects him. Right, the people of Nazareth reject him. They want to throw him off the cliff, and he goes through the crowd somehow, and he says, "Okay, well, I'm done with you then. I mean, you've rejected me," and so he goes to Capernaum, and that's where he sets up shop. So this is in the synagogue of Capernaum. Now I thought the synagogue of Magdala was cool, but I mean, like, there ain't no doubt. I mean, you can read passage after passage after passage of stuff that happens in this synagogue, okay? This is where Jesus loses his popularity when they follow him here. And he just basically tells them, like, I'm not going to give you more bread, okay? and he tells them some really, really hard stuff, and people leave him. People leave him here. And so this synagogue, you can tell this city also had a lot of money. This would have been where Matthew the tax collector would have been set up. And I didn't mention this, but Capernaum was on a road called the Via Maris. And if you're in Israel, they're going to talk about the Via Maris 100 times. Megiddo was on the Via Maris. That's why Megiddo was such a hot spot of battles, because the Via Maris actually means road to the sea. And it was the main road of the day. I mean, if you controlled the Via Maris, you controlled trade, you controlled commerce, you controlled everything, okay? And so Capernaum would have been on that road, and that's why Matthew would have been set up there as a tax collector. That's why the Romans would have had, not Cornelius, but I can't remember who was there. But it was a centurion. And so the centurion, there had been 100 soldiers here because it was such a spot to be, to make sure you control things. And I thought this was funny. Off of their synagogues, they would actually have other rooms, and this was a huge one. Do you know what that was for? Fellowships. Okay. They had potlucks. I don't know if they had potlucks, but they had rooms off to the side for fellowships and stuff like that, which I thought was really interesting. This is what they believe to be Peter's house, which many people believe that Jesus also lived with Peter while he was here in Capernaum. This is where Jesus would have walked. It's literally right beside the synagogue. So Jesus would have walked out of the synagogue, went and healed Peter's mother-in-law, and they've actually found inscriptions of Peter's name and many, 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 many other inscriptions as they dug down into this house. And then they believe, I won't bore you with how they know, but they believe that the first, like, the early church actually converted this house into like a secret church. And that's where they would meet and hide, really. This is would be some of y'all's favorite meal. It was okay. It was, a few fish bones here and there, but it was good. I'll leave that with you. Mount of Beatitudes. This was a highlight. I really enjoyed this. It was just kind of serene. It was just calming. So this was actually the seashore that many tourists don't go to this spot, but it was just real tranquil, and many believe that this is where they would have washed their nets. There's actually springs that come out here, and there's a lot of history behind them, but they believe this is where the people of Capernaum would have washed their nets, and this is where many believe that Jesus would have started the fire. And hey, have you caught any fish? And Peter's jumping out of the boat and swimming, and you're kind of just standing on the seashore and just like, wow. And then someone had started a fire like the day before. And I'm like, there's a fire, it's like it's all coming to my mind. Really cool. And then if you walk straight up the hill, this is, they don't know exactly where the Mount of Beatitudes is, where Jesus gave this dissertation, but this was a neat spot. And this is why. And I don't think I showed a video on Facebook for y'all, but I was about halfway. I'm trying to see if I can show you. See that dude like right there? Okay. I'm not even halfway up the hill. And I went even further, and they actually read the Beatitudes, or at least part of it, and you could hear like he was standing beside you. It's amazing, the acoustics. Obviously, something like that Jesus would have used. I mean, he's talking to how many people, and you could go complete to the top of the hill and just hear him clear as day. Just neat, and obviously God knew the spot that he needed. And you can oversee the Sea of Galilee. They believe this is kind of the area where Jesus would come and pray. So, Jesus goes up into the wilderness to pray. Now, he just, went up the hill, okay? So he went up the hill to pray, and he can just, and that's why he can see, oh, they're struggling in the boat. They're struggling in the storm. He can see them. They're right there, okay? And so that, I just thought that was really cool. That was just a really sweet spot, and we had a beautiful sunset that evening as well. Got to sing. Just have a campfire and sing on the Sea of Galilee. That was a blessing. Moving on, this is a place called Dan, and I won't stay here long, but Dan was a really neat spot. Does anybody know? Well, I'll just tell you, okay? So what happened with Dan, the tribe of Dan, right, one of the 12 tribes, they decided they didn't want to take the little area that God had given them. Cross the Jordan. Okay, this is, they divided up. This is your spot. This is your spot. This is your spot. And they decided that's really close to the Philistines, and we don't want that. And so, can we go up to Dan if we help you guys fight? Sure. Okay, or not Dan, but it wasn't called Dan at the time. So they did. They went up and they took this city, and they named it Dan, and they fell into pagan idolatry very quickly. Okay, went against God's plan, what God wanted them to do, and what I'm actually standing in front of right here is when the northern and the southern kingdom split, who was over the northern kingdom? Anybody know? That's a toughie. Jeroboam, okay? So Jeroboam was over the northern kingdom, and he didn't want his people going back down to Jerusalem, those traitors. And so he built 2 altars for his people to worship at. And it ended up turning into idolatry and just not good at all. And this was one of them. This was the actual altar, one of the altars that he built. Obviously, the metal framing was not part of it, but that was one of the altars he built. And then this was really cool. They found this gate. It is the oldest gate I think they've ever found, and it's the only one intact with a full arch. And they actually call this Abraham's gate because Abraham chased people to get Lot all the way to this place. And so they believe Abraham may have been standing at this gate, and that was really cool. It's the oldest arch they've ever found intact, and they don't even know what to do with it. That's why it just has dirt in the middle, because they don't know how to excavate it without destroying it. So they thought this was funny. They sprayed it with salt water, put a canopy over it, and you can't see, but there's a little fake owl to keep the birds from chipping away at it. But anyway. And then this, I'm actually looking into, I believe, is Lebanon. And so they actually said, hey, just wave everybody. So we waved, and they said, you can't see them, but Hezbollah can see you waving at them right now, and they have their eye on you. So thought that was really cool. We're right on the border there. I say it was cool. I mean, they got their machine guns and everything. But anyway, Caesarea Philippi, this probably, and I'm running, I'm sorry, y'all. This probably stood out in my mind more than any other spot we went to. Caesarea Philippi, Jesus took his disciples all the way from Galilee, the Sea of Galilee, Capernaum area, all the way up to Caesarea Philippi. Caesarea Philippi was an area, was this place right here, that Greeks, they kind of put towards Greek gods and idols, and it really was a cesspool. It was nasty, okay? This was an awful, awful place where they would worship idols and gods and everything else. And so why would Jesus take his disciples up here? Well, he takes them up here to ask them, who do men say that I am? Now, that sounds like, when we read that, we don't picture, okay? I rode on a bus for over an hour from the Sea of Galilee to get here. And they walked that whole way for Jesus to literally ask them one question. Could he not have asked it at the Sea of Galilee? And so why would he ask them, hey, who do men say that I am? And they said, well, some say that you're Elijah, and some say you're the prophets. And okay. I get what they say. But who do you say that I am? And Peter speaks up, well, you're the Christ. You're the Son of the living God. Ah, Peter, you're right. You're right. And so they're at this place, and you can see where they would have cutouts for their different gods and their idols, and this is what they believe it would have looked like at some time. But this is really cool. That cave behind me used to be bigger. A earthquake kind of brought some of it down. That cave is called, and has been, since anybody's ever known, has been called the gates of hell, because it was so dark and deep. And so what does Jesus say? Yes, Peter, you're right. And the gates of hell, and I will build, right? I'll build my church upon this rock. And you're looking at this cliff. It's all a visual. You're looking at this big cliff. Okay, well, Jesus is going to build on top of all of this, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And it's a visual. And when you're there, you're like, I mean, they're looking at this. Okay, we're looking at all of this idolatry and all of this wickedness and everything that Satan is orchestrating here, and Jesus is saying, and none of this is going to prevail against what you just said, Peter. None of it. And it would have been ingrained in their mind. How cool. How cool. That one just stood out to me. And then kind of a letdown after that. But this is called shawarma. So go from a biblical concept to shawarma. But this is some kind of the food you would have eaten. Chicken, kind of interesting stuff. I'm running. This is Gideon Spring. They know this is Gideon Spring. It's the only spring that comes out of this mountainside. So they know this is where Gideon's men would have had them kneel down, and either they lapped it, right, or they scooped it, and that determined if they got to go into battle or not, right? So that's Gideon Spring. This is Jericho Road, and this is, I'll point to you. So over here is Jericho. You come down the valley. Up on this hillside over here is Jerusalem. And so anybody that was traveling that way would have went from Jericho to Jerusalem, would have went through this valley. This would have been the valley and the road of the Good Samaritan, when Jesus gives the story of the Good Samaritan. And he talks about coming or going from Jerusalem to Jericho. This was what they would have pictured. Even today, our tour guide said, when I was in training, I had to hike from Jericho through this to Jerusalem. It took us a full day. He said, and even today, you do not do that yourself. You will get jumped. You will get beaten. You might be left for dead. And so you go in big groups. Anyway, so very interesting, very interesting. You just get this picture of this. They had to go through this. And that's the thieves and the robbers. And when you read about those thieves and robbers, this is where they're hiding out at, okay? There's just a little bit more of it. Caiaphas' house and the city of David. So I finally made it to Jerusalem, okay? I'm just going to be honest with you. Jerusalem was kind of I don't say a letdown for me, but it's just a big hustling, bustling city, okay? Everything's there's some authentic stuff, and they've excavated and got to some stuff, but it's just a big city. It's just a big city. This stood out to me. Caiaphas's house. After they would have arrested Jesus, they bring him to Caiaphas's house, the high priest, and as they found this house, they found this big hole. This hole led to this dungeon. No way out except for the hole. And they would, as they were trying to deliberate and figure out what to do with somebody, they would lower them into this hole and keep them in this holding cell. Many believe, because they did this with everybody, that Jesus was probably in this, if not this one, in one like this, a holding cell, in a very sombering place as you're down there. Just dark, wet, damp, just the loneliness that we don't even hear about this in scriptures. But more than likely, Jesus would have been in this place, just in holding, in waiting. And I was mesmerized that they knew how to make plexiglass back then, but just some more of it. This would have been the city of David, well, they believe is the old city of David. And so I just put this picture up here just to show you. This would have been the outside wall of his palace. And you're like, well, how would he have seen Bathsheba on a rooftop? Well, this would have been houses right here at the very base of his city wall. And then obviously houses down through. But and so obviously he could have seen the whole city from his vantage point. From this vantage point, this is the Kidron Valley. And so this is where Jesus would have walked down through many times. This up here is all the Mount of Olives. And it goes longer than that. But that's the Mount of Olives. And right here is the Garden of Gethsemane. And I'll show you that in a second. This is the Pool of Shalom. And really neat. They're actually excavating more of it. They just bought like the backyard of someone's house because they knew it was under there. And they're like, someone finally held out. Like they lived in Raleigh, right? They finally held out and like, we got enough money out of it. We're going to sell it. And so they were actually excavating it there as we were there. But right behind, you see this little like opening in the back there? That is called the Pilgrim Street. And it's actually the road that they would have, the pilgrims, they called them pilgrims. Anybody that came to Jerusalem for the Passover and all these feasts would walk up this street to the southern steps of the city. And so I actually got to walk up some of those steps, and they're trying to open up they're trying to excavate the whole thing so you can walk from the Pool of Shalom all the way up. Really cool. This is probably one of my favorite spots. This is the Garden of Gethsemane. And just the presence of God in this place. I don't get super emotional. I didn't like boohoo, but I did tear up. We got to go take about 20 minutes and just go off and pray ourselves. And man, I got up from praying and just feeling the Spirit of the Lord, and everyone else around was just boohooing. I mean, you're right in the middle of the city. I mean, you just hear cars and horns and beeping, but it just all drowns out because it's just like, what, this is where Jesus prayed. This is where he sweat great drops of blood. This is where his disciples fell asleep on him, okay? And so this was the Garden of Gethsemane, and man, it just grabs you. It just grabs you. So that was neat. And then this is very unspiritual. But in the middle of Old Jerusalem, all of these shops and stores, and there was a dedicated Alabama store, y'all. I don't even know. I mean, I had to buy something for my wife and my in-laws, but I didn't get it. There's like an Arab running an Alabama store in the middle of Old Jerusalem. I just thought that was hilarious. Idolatry, that's right. This is the Western Wall, and this was actually a Jew that just came up and, hey, you guys want pictures? I'm like, sure. And he's from Maine. He grew up in Maine, and then he moved back to Jerusalem like 10 years ago. And but this was sad because they go to this Western Wall. They call it the Wailing Wall. Did something flash and go crazy? Okay, well, it's working now. But they go here, and we got to go under the wall and see excavations and stuff. That was really cool. But they leave these notes, and it's as close as they can get to Temple Mount because Arabs own Temple Mount, and they believe that they're wailing and all these crazy. I mean, and they're doing crazy stuff. I mean, they are just all into it, and they leave these notes, and they believe that they're right with God, and they're not. And I think that's one of the things that gripped me while we were there, just the sadness of there are so many different religions in one spot, and they're all wrong. They're all lost. They're all just caught up in religion. And they're somewhat coinciding together, not really, but it's sad. It's so sad. this was really neat. This stood out to me for some reason. This right here, do you see this like stick out, this jut out? This would have actually been an arch down through here, which is where the Gentiles would have entered into the court and the Temple Mount. There we go. But right here, there's some doorways. You probably can't see them because you're too far away. They excavated this, and they found many things that make them believe this is where the money changers would have been. And so Jesus throws out the money changers. This would have been where it was, more than likely. And so just right outside the city gate, and then they would walk up into the Gentile gate there. Thought that was really cool. More to say about that, but I haven't got time. So Southern Steps. Now, this is where many believe that Peter would have preached Pentecost. And I won't tell you why they believe that, but it's there. And that was just a really neat spot. Knowing this would have been, remember I told you the Pool of Shalom, and then they walked up those pilgrim steps? This is where they would have ended. And they would have walked into Temple Mount right here. And so Jesus, no doubt, is walking up through here at this point, at some point in time. Many times in his life. They believe that Jesus, they would go to Jerusalem 3 times a year. So he probably made the trek all the way from Nazareth to here over 90 times in his life. So this would have been, something that he was very familiar with. Shiloh and Bethel. This was, I think I've said this is a neat spot like 100 times, but Shiloh. Shiloh is where, the children of Israel, they're wandering in the wilderness, and they finally cross over, right, and they start conquering. And this is Shiloh. This is where they would have set up the tabernacle. This is where they kind of made home base, and this is where they sent out the tribes. And so we got to actually be right where the tabernacle was set up permanently. This is where Hannah would have prayed for Samuel. This is where Samuel would have lived under Eli, the priest, right? You know what I'm talking about? And Samuel has here's the voice 3 times in the middle of the night. This is it. I'm standing right here where Samuel heard the voice of God and Eli. Anyway, it's just some neat stuff. This is Bethel. Anybody know what I'm doing there? I'm clever. I actually started a fad here, and everybody was like, "Oh, I got to do that." Anyway, I was real proud of this. So Bethel. What happens at Bethel? Who's at Bethel? Jacob. Jacob's what? Jacob's ladder. And so Jacob has that dream where he's climbing the ladder, right? Okay, at Bethel. And so I'm sleeping. I didn't have any visions of a ladder, but I was sleeping at Bethel. I thought that was cool. And I'm almost at the end, I promise. Ian Getty. Ian Getty is, this one stood out to me too. Behind me is the Dead Sea. So that's the Dead Sea back there. We took this hike, probably a 25-minute hike up the ravine, and it's all desert, except for this ravine is just luscious and green. And it's because when you get to the top, there's a waterfall. So there's the waterfall. But Ian Getty is where David, this would have actually, above me it's gone because an earthquake took down the whole roof, but it was a massive roof, and they know that because of stalactites in the walls. But this is the cave that David hid out from Saul. And this is where David would have wrote, I was going to read to you, we don't have time. This is where David would have wrote Psalms 57. So go home tonight and read Psalms 57 and picture, and he's overlooking the Dead Sea. He's hiding, he's in fear for his life. And this is it. So I thought that was cool. Dead Sea, the lowest place on earth. There were some low people there. But we got to float in the Dead Sea, and it is truly because most of you, when I said Israel, you're all just like, are you going to float in the Dead Sea? Like, that was the first thing that came to your mind. It's very unique. And I did lick it, and it's nasty, okay? It's 10 times saltier than the ocean. So 10 times, and not just salty, it has minerals. Like, you would think you just feel like a prune as soon as you get in, like you just dry up. No, it has so many minerals that your skin feels like silk. Like your hair just feels silky. It's really weird. And your legs, truly, you just kind of like fall back, and your legs just go whoom. And you can't hardly force them back down. Like, you have to like work to get your body back down to the ground. And if you start to roll, it tries to like throw you because the density is just, it's a weird feeling, y'all. So if you ever go to the Dead Sea, take some clothes to throw away because they'll be nasty when you get done. But very, very, very cool. Garden Tomb and Golgotha, that was what they believed to be Golgotha. And they don't know if this is where Jesus was put, but they did find things that make them know that this was a garden, and we know that Jesus was put into a tomb in a garden, right? And so they actually found a cistern that would have, fed water and all these different things. So there I am in front of the Garden Tomb, inside the Garden Tomb. I will say, probably not as overwhelming as you would think it is. I mean, it's a really neat spot. We actually got to go in a room right outside this tomb, and we just sang a cappella hymns for like 30 minutes, and that was very awe-inspiring. But just very neat. And then the last picture, this is the Valley of Elah. And we know what happens in the Valley of Elah. David and Goliath, which I talked to the teenagers about Sunday night. So I'll show you this, and we're done. This is the valley right here, okay? And you can't see it, but the brook that he would have picked up 5 smooth stones runs about right through there. And then this hillside, this mountain, is where the Israelites would have been. And the Philistines would have been on this hillside, and they would have met right in here. So anyway, maybe helps you picture. I know a lot of pictures. Thank you all for hanging in there. I'm like 12 minutes over. I apologize. I know we don't have time for questions, but I hope that was a blessing to you. Is there any just like big question? Like, I have to know this about the ice cream. No? Okay. If you have a question afterwards, come ask me. I hope this kind of brings something to life to you. Here's what I really hope it does. I hope it gives you an excitement to want to go to Israel. I already want to go back, and I would love within the next 2 to 3 years to take a group with me from Shady Grove Church. And it's very possible. Miss Evelyn's going in the fall, not with us, but Miss Evelyn's going. I know you're excited about it, and hopefully that makes you even more excited about it. But I want you to consider, maybe in the future, yeah, I could do that. Okay, I could do that. Let's have a word of prayer, and then we will dive out of here. Lord, thank you for Lord, this time together, and Lord, I thank you for how your word comes to life. Lord, I pray that this time together would do that for us.